It was a bright afternoon in the busy market of Lahore. The sound of vendors shouting mixed with the honking of rickshaws. Children laughed. Dust hung in the sunlight like golden mist. Amid that chaos stood Ayan, calm, quiet, and observing. He was a young man with a strange kind of wisdom. He believed silence could sometimes be louder than words. But today, his patience was about to be tested. A loud voice called from behind. "Hey, genius! Look who is here, the so-called smart boy of the street." Ayan turned. It was Rafiq, a man known for his arrogance and childish attitude. People avoided him because he mocked everyone. He loved making others feel small. Rafiq walked closer, grinning. "So, Ayan, you think you are smarter than everyone? Tell me, if you are so wise, why are you still broke?" The crowd turned silent. Eyes shifted toward Ayan. The moment hung heavy, thick with expectation. Ayan smiled softly. He looked at Rafiq and said nothing. That silence annoyed Rafiq even more. He slapped Ayan's notebook from his hand, pages scattering across the dirt. The crowd gasped. A few whispered, "He will hit him back." But Ayan just knelt down, slowly picking up his papers one by one. He said quietly, "Some fools understand only the language of foolishness." Rafiq laughed. "Oh, so now you act like a fool too?" Ayan stood up straight, a faint smile on his face. "Yes," he said calmly, "exactly that. And that was the beginning of something no one expected." The next morning, Rafiq entered the tea stall near the market, his usual place. But this time, Ayan was already sitting there. He wore mismatched slippers, a silly hat, and was talking loudly to himself. The whole crowd burst into laughter. Rafiq smirked, walking toward him. "What are you doing, genius? Lost your mind." Ayan looked up, eyes wide with exaggerated innocence. He said loudly, "Good morning, king of fools. Did you polish your crown today?" The tea stall went silent for a moment. Then laughter erupted again, but this time it was not aimed at Ayan. It was aimed at Rafiq. Rafiq's face turned red. He stepped closer, angry. But Ayan stood, mimicking Rafiq's every gesture, every word, every move, like a mirror. When Rafiq raised his hand, Ayan raised his too. When Rafiq blinked fast, Ayan blinked faster. The crowd laughed uncontrollably. For the first time, Rafiq looked small, powerless. He shouted, "Stop copying me, idiot." Ayan shouted back instantly, "Stop copying me, idiot." People clapped. Some whistled. Others could not stop laughing. Rafiq froze, embarrassed, humiliated, and speechless. He stormed off, kicking the dirt as laughter followed him down the street. Ayan sat back down, sipping his tea with a small grin. He whispered to himself, "You handle a fool by being a bigger fool." But later that evening, when the laughter was gone and the streets grew quiet, Ayan sat alone under a street lamp. The warm orange light flickered above him. He pulled out his notebook, brushing away dust from the pages. His expression changed. No longer playful, now thoughtful. He whispered softly, "It is easy to fight a fool with anger, but harder to fight one with peace." Then he smiled faintly, "But sometimes peace wears a clown's mask." He wrote those words down, his handwriting steady, his eyes focused. The night wind brushed his face gently, and somewhere far away, Rafiq's laughter echoed, not mocking anymore, but almost uncertain. The next day, the market was louder than usual. Vendors shouted. Kids ran between stalls, and the smell of fresh samosas filled the air. But all the noise faded when people saw Rafiq walking in, quietly, head down. He was not laughing this time. No arrogance, no teasing. A few men whispered what happened to him. Others just stared, surprised at the silence of the man who once never stopped talking. Ayan stood at his corner shop, arranging books on a small wooden shelf. He saw Rafiq approaching. The crowd held its breath. No one knew what was about to happen. Rafiq stopped in front of Ayan and said, in a soft voice, "Can we talk?" Ayan nodded. He gestured for him to sit. They both sat on a small bench beside the stall. For a moment, no one spoke, just the sound of the wind moving through the fabric of nearby tents. Then Rafiq said, I was angry yesterday. I wanted to make you look stupid, but you made me see my own face. Ayan looked at him, calm and gentle. Sometimes, he said quietly, a mirror hurts more than a punch. Rafik sighed deeply. I laughed at you, insulted you, made fun of you, but yesterday, when people laughed at me, I felt what I made others feel. Ayan gave a small smile. That is how life teaches us, not through pride, but through reflection. Rafik looked down, ashamed. I was the fool, and you handled me by becoming one. But now I understand. The crowd around them was silent, listening. Even the shopkeepers had paused their work. Ayan stood, placing a hand on Rafik's shoulder. Do not be ashamed, he said. Everyone plays a fool sometimes. The only difference is wise men learn from it. Rafik looked up, eyes wet. You taught me more in one day than anyone did in years. Ayan smiled. I did not teach you, Rafik. You just finally listened to yourself. The wind blew softly again, and for the first time, there was peace between them, a quiet understanding that needed no words. As the crowd slowly dispersed, Rafik helped Ayan organize his books. No words, no jokes, just quiet respect. For the first time, Ayan saw something honest in Rafik's eyes. Not foolishness, not pride, but understanding. He knew then that sometimes the best way to fix a broken soul is not to argue with it, but to show it its own reflection. The sun began to set behind the buildings, turning the sky into shades of gold and crimson. Ayan closed the stall, watching the light fade softly. He whispered under his breath, never fight a fool to prove you are smart. Sometimes you win more by playing their game differently. He smiled at himself and walked away as the first stars appeared above the market. But little did he know, someone else had been watching that entire moment from across the street, and they were planning something. As the last rays of sunlight slipped behind the rooftops, the marketplace turned quieter. But one pair of eyes still followed Ayan's every move. From behind a faded fabric stall, a man in a dark cortez stood, half hidden in shadow. His gaze was sharp, calculating, not like Rafik's arrogance, but colder, heavier, almost dangerous. Ayan walked down the narrow street, his sandals brushing softly against the dusty road. He felt the chill in the evening air. He pulled his bag closer to his chest, unaware that someone was trailing behind him. The street lamps flickered to life one by one, casting long, trembling shadows on the walls. Dogs barked in the distance. The city was alive, yet strangely still. He turned a corner, and for a second, he thought he heard footsteps. He stopped. The sound stopped too. He turned slowly, his eyes scanning the dim alley. Nothing but a swaying signboard and a faint hum from a nearby generator. He shook his head and walked on, but the feeling of being watched clung to him like the dust on his sleeves. At the end of the lane, he reached his small apartment, a one-room space with a cracked blue door and a dim yellow bulb hanging above it. He pushed the door open, stepped inside, and locked it behind him. The silence was comforting for a moment. He exhaled deeply and set his bag on the table. But when he turned, his heart skipped a beat. The window was slightly open. He was sure he had closed it before leaving. A soft breeze moved the curtain, and something on the table caught his eye, a small folded note. He picked it up slowly. The handwriting was rough, uneven. It said only 5 words. You handle one fool well. Ayan's chest tightened. His eyes scanned the words again. There was no name, no signature, just that single line. He walked to the window and looked out. The street was empty. Only the sound of the wind against the old metal signs filled the silence. Ayan closed the curtain and leaned back against the wall. He could feel his pulse quicken. Was this a message of warning, or something more? He folded the note carefully, placed it inside his notebook, and whispered to himself, maybe the next fool will not be so easy to handle. He turned off the light. The room fell into darkness, except for the faint glow of the city outside his window. And somewhere in that darkness, a quiet chuckle echoed, as if someone else had already planned their next move. Ayan stood at his window for a long moment, watching the distant lights of the city shimmer like quiet stars. He felt the weight of the note in his pocket, light as paper, but heavy with meaning. He smiled faintly, not out of fear, but understanding. Life had just whispered another lesson to him. Fools come in many shapes, some loud, some silent, and some hidden behind masks of wisdom. But one truth never changed. The power to handle them was not in anger or revenge. It was in calm cleverness and self-control. He walked to his small desk, opened his notebook, and wrote a single line beneath his last entry. The greatest fool is the one who underestimates peace. He closed the notebook gently, the pages filled with lessons, laughter, and quiet strength. As he blew out the candle, the room sank into soft darkness, but his eyes carried a light that no shadow could touch. Outside, the wind whispered through the market streets, carrying the echoes of a man who once handled a fool by being wise enough to act like one. Sometimes, wisdom wears the mask of foolishness, because true strength is not in proving others wrong, but in mastering your own peace.